Someone dreamed they were making love with you. This person is. My beloved child, listen carefully, because somewhere between yesterday's sunset and this morning's first light, a story began that you were never meant to ignore. Someone closed their eyes expecting an ordinary night, yet your presence entered their dream in a way they cannot explain. They did not search for you. They did not plan to see you. And yet, out of countless faces and countless possibilities, it was yours that remained long after they awoke. Think about that for a moment. What if the most meaningful moments in life don't begin with words, but with silent connections no one can predict? Stay with this thought, because every piece of this story leads somewhere unexpected. The dream itself was not about perfection. It was not filled with impossible promises or dramatic scenes. Instead, it carried something much quieter, a feeling so real that it lingered after the dream had ended. When morning arrived, this person found themselves replaying every moment, asking questions they had never asked before. Why did your face seem so familiar? Why did your presence feel comforting? Why did it seem as though meeting you had changed something deep inside them? Sometimes life whispers before it speaks loudly. Sometimes the future introduces itself through moments that cannot be explained immediately. Whether you believe dreams are symbolic, emotional reflections, or simply mysterious experiences, one truth remains: certain encounters leave an unforgettable mark on the human heart. Now imagine this. While you were living your ordinary day, unaware of anything unusual, someone else was carrying the memory of seeing you. They may not even understand why your image stayed with them. They only know that something about you refused to disappear from their thoughts. Isn't it fascinating how life can connect two stories without either person realizing it at first? But don't rush ahead. Because this isn't only about another person's dream. It's also about what that dream awakened inside them. Curiosity replaced certainty. Hope quietly replaced doubt. Questions began replacing old routines. They started noticing little signs around them. Conversations that reminded them of the dream, familiar songs appearing at unexpected moments, random thoughts leading back to the same mysterious face. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps life has a way of preparing people long before they ever cross paths. Here's something few people ever consider. The strongest connections rarely announce themselves with noise. They begin gently, almost invisibly, growing stronger every time they are remembered. That's why some moments refuse to fade, even when logic says they should. Pause here for one more thought. What if this dream wasn't trying to predict the future, but simply encouraging someone to pay closer attention to the people and possibilities life places before them? That single question changes everything. Instead of chasing certainty, they begin noticing opportunities. Instead of fearing the unknown, they become open to meaningful connections that once seemed impossible. And as this story continues, another layer will unfold, one that makes the dream even more surprising than it first appeared. Because the person who saw you isn't the only one being guided toward a new chapter. Stay a little longer. The next revelation may completely change the way you think about unexpected encounters, hidden connections, and the quiet moments that often become the beginning of life's most unforgettable journeys. A strange feeling is beginning to take shape. Not because everything suddenly makes sense, but because the pieces are slowly finding each other. The person who dreamed about you has started noticing something unusual. It isn't your name appearing everywhere or impossible signs falling from the sky. It's much quieter than that. They find themselves becoming more aware of the people they meet, the conversations they have, and the moments that once seemed ordinary. Somehow, the dream has made them pay closer attention to life itself. And here's the surprising part. The more they reflect on that dream, the less it feels like a random collection of images. It feels like a reminder that meaningful connections often begin long before two lives truly intersect. Every day since then, they have carried a quiet curiosity, wondering if there is a reason your face remained so vivid while every other detail slowly faded away. Stay with this story, because the next layer is where everything begins to shift. There are moments in life when we meet someone and feel as though we've known them before. Science may call it familiarity. Others may call it intuition. Whatever name you choose, the experience is remarkably real. This person has begun asking themselves whether the dream was simply reflecting an inner hope, or whether it encouraged them to become more open to the possibilities waiting ahead. That change is already influencing the way they move through the world. They smile more often. They hesitate less before starting conversations. They notice kindness where they once noticed only routine. Without realizing it, the dream has become a quiet source of motivation, reminding them that life still has unexpected chapters left to reveal. Now ask yourself this. Have you ever experienced a moment that felt strangely familiar before it even happened? A place that felt welcoming the instant you arrived? A conversation that seemed to continue from somewhere beyond memory? Sometimes those experiences don't give us answers immediately. Instead, they invite us to remain curious. Curiosity is powerful. It keeps people searching instead of settling. It encourages growth instead of fear. And perhaps that is the greatest gift this mysterious dream offered, not certainty, but the courage to believe that meaningful encounters can arrive when least expected. Before we continue, if this story has made you pause and reflect, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Someone else's perspective may resonate with your own. And if you're enjoying this journey, subscribing means you'll be here when the next chapter unfolds. Because this story is far from over. The person who dreamed about you still doesn't know exactly why that night felt different. But they do know one thing. Ever since that dream, they've become more attentive to the quiet opportunities life places before them. Instead of rushing through each day, they now recognize that some of the most important moments begin with something almost invisible, a feeling, a question, or a memory that refuses to disappear. And perhaps that's the real mystery. Not whether dreams predict the future, but whether they inspire us to become the kind of person who recognizes meaningful moments when they finally arrive. Don't move on just yet. The next part uncovers the unexpected decision this person makes after that unforgettable dream, a decision that quietly sets an entirely new path into motion. And once you hear it, the story you've been following may take a direction you never anticipated. Everything changes with a single decision, and most people never realize the exact moment it happens. While the world continued moving at its usual pace, the person who dreamed about you made a quiet promise to themselves. They would no longer ignore the moments that felt meaningful. Instead of dismissing them as coincidence, they would pay attention, observe more carefully, and allow life to unfold without forcing every answer. That choice may seem small, but it carries more power than you imagine. Because once someone becomes truly aware, ordinary days begin revealing extraordinary details. A familiar conversation suddenly feels important. A chance meeting seems perfectly timed. An unexpected opportunity appears where there was once only routine. Nothing magical has changed around them, yet everything feels different because they are seeing the world through new eyes. Pause here for a second. What if the dream was never meant to reveal a specific person at all? What if its real purpose was to awaken a new way of looking at life? That possibility is far more powerful than simply knowing someone's identity. It transforms uncertainty into curiosity and hesitation into quiet confidence. Since that unforgettable night, this person has noticed something remarkable. They no longer feel the need to rush every answer. Instead, they have learned that some of life's greatest moments reveal themselves slowly, one step at a time. Every sunrise feels like another page waiting to be written. Every conversation carries the possibility of becoming unforgettable. And perhaps that is exactly where your story quietly intersects with theirs. Not through dramatic events, but through timing. Timing has a way of surprising us. The right words arrive after countless silent days. The right opportunity appears after moments of doubt. The right connection often comes when both people have grown into someone they couldn't have been months before. Stay with this thought. Imagine looking back one day and realizing that what once seemed like an ordinary season was actually preparing you for something meaningful. The delays weren't empty. The waiting wasn't wasted. Every experience was shaping perspective, patience, and understanding in ways that only become clear later. This person has begun to understand that truth. Instead of chasing certainty, they now value genuine moments. Instead of expecting instant answers, they appreciate steady progress. They have discovered that the strongest connections are built on authenticity, kindness, and mutual respect, not on perfect timing alone. Here's the question that lingers. Could two different lives be moving toward a meaningful moment without either person fully realizing it today? No one can answer that with certainty. Yet history is filled with stories where unexpected meetings changed everything simply because someone remained open instead of closed, hopeful instead of fearful. That is why this journey continues. The dream became the beginning, not the destination. It planted a question that continues to grow with every passing day, encouraging reflection rather than assumption, possibility rather than prediction. So don't leave just yet. The next chapter reveals the final piece of this unfolding story, the realization that brings everything together in a way neither you nor the dreamer could have expected. Sometimes the ending doesn't arrive with loud applause. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet truth that changes the way you see every moment that came before. There is one final layer you haven't seen yet, and it may be the most meaningful of all. The dream was never the destination. It was the beginning of an inner transformation that neither person could recognize in the moment. Sometimes life doesn't hand us complete answers. Instead, it gives us a single thread and quietly invites us to follow it until the bigger picture reveals itself. Take a moment and imagine this. Weeks from now, months from now, you may look back on today and realize that what seemed like an ordinary story was actually encouraging you to become more present, more aware, and more open to the unexpected. That is how many unforgettable journeys begin, not with certainty, but with curiosity. The person who dreamed about you has reached an important realization. They no longer ask, "Why did I see this dream?" Instead, they ask, "What kind of person do I want to become because of it?" That single shift changes everything. Their focus moves away from chasing mysteries and toward building a life filled with kindness, confidence, patience, and genuine connection. And perhaps that is the greatest revelation hidden inside this entire story. Meaningful relationships are rarely built on one extraordinary moment. They are shaped through countless ordinary choices, listening instead of assuming, understanding instead of judging, appreciating instead of overlooking. Dreams may inspire reflection, but it is our actions in the real world that shape the future. Now consider your own journey. How many opportunities have quietly appeared in your life without announcing themselves? How many meaningful conversations almost never happened because someone was too distracted to notice? Sometimes the biggest turning points don't arrive with dramatic music. They arrive disguised as simple moments that only become important when viewed in hindsight. If this story has sparked your imagination or reminded you to look at life with fresh eyes, you're welcome to share your thoughts in the comments. Someone reading your experience may find encouragement in it. And if you've enjoyed following this journey, subscribing is a simple way to continue exploring stories that invite curiosity, reflection, and hope. But don't think the journey ends here. Every story leaves behind a question, and this one is no different. The real mystery was never discovering exactly who had the dream. The real mystery is what happens when one unexpected experience inspires someone to live with greater awareness, greater compassion, and greater courage than they did before. Perhaps that's why this story found you today. Not to convince you of impossible certainties, but to remind you that life is full of unexpected moments waiting to be noticed. The future isn't written in a single dream. It's written through the choices we make after we wake up. So carry this thought with you. Stay curious. Stay hopeful. Stay open to the people you meet and the opportunities that quietly appear when you least expect them. Because sometimes the smallest moment becomes the first page of a chapter you'll remember for the rest of your life. And in the final chapter, everything you've heard so far comes together in one unforgettable conclusion. One that leaves you with a message far more powerful than the mystery that started it all. Not every answer arrives the moment you begin searching. Sometimes the greatest discoveries appear only after you've learned to stop chasing them. And perhaps that is exactly where this story has been leading all along. The person who dreamed about you eventually understood something that had been hidden from them since the very beginning. The dream itself was never meant to define reality. It was a mirror, reflecting their deepest hopes, their curiosity, and their readiness to notice the people who genuinely bring peace into their life. That realization changed everything. Instead of wondering whether every coincidence carried a secret meaning, they began appreciating the beauty of authentic moments. A sincere smile became more valuable than endless assumptions. Honest conversations mattered more than imagined answers. They discovered that real connections are built through trust, respect, and shared experiences, not by trying to solve every mystery before its time. Take a quiet moment and think about your own path. How often have you looked back and realized that life made sense only after enough time had passed? The events that once felt confusing suddenly fit together like pieces of a puzzle. The delays became lessons. The unexpected turns became opportunities. The people who entered your life each carried something that helped shape the person you are becoming. Perhaps this story has served the same purpose. Maybe it arrived not to tell you exactly what tomorrow holds, but to remind you that every meaningful relationship begins with awareness. It begins when we choose to listen more carefully, appreciate more deeply, and remain open to possibilities instead of closing the door because certainty hasn't arrived yet. The person who dreamed about you no longer lives with endless questions. Instead, they move forward with quiet confidence. They understand that whatever is truly meant to become part of their journey will reveal itself naturally, without fear, without pressure, and without forcing what isn't ready. There is something peaceful about that way of thinking. It allows hope to exist without anxiety. It allows patience to replace urgency. It reminds us that life's most unforgettable chapters are often written one ordinary day at a time, long before we recognize how important they truly are. And now, after traveling through every part of this story, one message remains. Never underestimate the quiet moments. Never overlook the simple conversations. Never assume that ordinary days cannot become extraordinary memories. Sometimes a single experience encourages us to see the world differently, and that new perspective becomes the beginning of everything that follows. As this journey approaches its final chapter, remember this above all else: the greatest mystery was never about identifying a single person or predicting a single future. It was about awakening a deeper awareness of the people, opportunities, and meaningful connections that already exist around you. One last piece still remains. The ending isn't a dramatic revelation, it is a powerful reminder that the future is shaped not by dreams alone, but by the choices, kindness, courage, and openness we bring into each new day. And that final message is waiting just ahead. One quiet realization has been waiting for this exact moment, and once you hear it, the entire journey begins to look different. The person who dreamed about you eventually stopped searching for hidden meanings in every detail. Instead, they began asking a far more important question: what if this experience is inviting me to become more present, more grateful, and more open to the people who truly matter? That question became a turning point. From that day forward, they noticed something remarkable. The world around them hadn't changed overnight, yet their perspective had. Small conversations felt richer. Unexpected encounters felt more meaningful. Every ordinary day carried the possibility of becoming unforgettable simply because they were paying attention in a way they never had before. Now consider this. What if the value of a dream is not that it predicts tomorrow, but that it changes how we live today? A single moment of reflection can inspire courage. A single memory can encourage kindness. A single unexplained experience can remind us that life is still filled with possibilities waiting to be discovered. Stay with this thought for just a little longer. The face they remembered from that dream became less important than the feeling it left behind. It was a feeling of hope. A reminder that meaningful connections are built through sincerity, patience, and mutual respect. Instead of expecting instant answers, they learned to appreciate steady growth, genuine conversations, and the quiet confidence that comes from allowing life to unfold naturally. Perhaps that is why this story found you. Not to convince you that every dream carries a hidden message, but to encourage you to remain open to the meaningful moments that often arrive without warning. Sometimes the people who leave the greatest impact on our lives first appear as strangers. Sometimes a simple conversation becomes the beginning of a lasting memory. And sometimes the smallest choice, to listen, to smile, to understand, creates a future we never imagined. Take a deep look at your own journey. How many opportunities have quietly appeared while you were focused on something else? How many people have crossed your path carrying kindness that almost went unnoticed? The greatest chapters of life rarely begin with certainty. They begin with awareness, with curiosity, and with the willingness to embrace each new day without fear. That is the message this entire